The interesting part of his statement, which I hadn't heard a lot of people talk about, is that he was really blaming DOJ. The Department of Justice is who shut down the investigation. But you know what, Chris, we don't live in a relativistic world, and you don't get to pick and choose which rules to abide by, and you don't get to decide when to tell the truth and when not to. I'm going to withhold judgment until Horowitz's report comes out, because I don't know precisely what he found.
We should just say Horowitz is the Inspector General.
Right, who, 2 weeks ago the president was criticizing, and now all of a sudden McCabe is criticizing, so he probably is doing his job because everyone's criticizing him. Let's wait and see what he found. Let's wait and see what that lack of candor was, and then we can judge the fact pattern and the proportionality of the penalty of his losing his pension. We can judge all that once we understand exactly what he's alleged to have done, but make no mistake, the FBI is who recommended that he be fired. It wasn't crazy House Republicans, and it wasn't the Trump administration. It was his own fellow bureau agents.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Let's Talk Headlines series. I'm your host, Jay, and this is The Objective. I want to thank you so much. Oh, that was nice. I want to thank you for tuning in to the 46th episode of the Let's Talk Headlines series. For those of you who support the channel, who keep on coming back week after week to spend some time with me, I do appreciate it. Your support does not go unnoticed. And for those of you who are new to the channel, any newcomers here, I just want to thank you for tuning in and for spending some time with me for but a moment. I don't intend to take too much of your time. If you do appreciate the content, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Before we get into the show, folks, I want to direct your attention to www.politicalstorm.com. I am fortunate to be a contributor to Political Storm. I do write articles and I do upload my podcast to Political Storm. Myself and a number of other contributors, very talented people, all devoted to bringing discussion back to politics. Now, on Political Storm, you'll have liberals, you'll have conservatives, you'll have independents. There is a wide variety of thought and opinion, and that's why I like the website. It's literally a storm, a hurricane, if you will, of ideas and different concepts and ideologies. And basically looking at current events through different lenses. I think that's very important for everybody to be exposed to different points of view. It sharpens us. So definitely check out www.politicalstorm.com. The quote for today, before we get into the show, is from Milton Berle. The quote says, "If opportunity doesn't knock, build a door." If opportunity doesn't knock, build a door. I really appreciated the imagery in this quote, especially the building a door, because to build a door, what this is basically saying is that you can't sit around and wait for opportunity. Because typically the opportunities that come to you from just sitting around waiting aren't usually worthwhile. If you want to expose yourself and put yourself in a position to, have opportunities presented to you, you need to, like the quote says, build a door. What that means is that you have to invest time, you have to invest energy, you have to better yourself, whether it's, looking for a job, whether it's looking for a promotion, whether it's looking for a relationship. You have to put yourself in a position for success. Your actions have to be conducive to your desire to maintain that goal, whatever that is. So I thought that was really interesting. So as you go through the rest of this week, just keep in mind, if opportunity doesn't knock, build a door. There was another school shooting, this time in Maryland, St. Mary's County. The high school was Great Mills High School. The shooting left 2 students shot, one in stable, one in critical. The gunman was a 17-year-old. I will not say his name on the show, but he was shot and killed by Deputy Blaine Gaskill. Deputy Blaine Gaskill was a school resource officer, but not only was he a school resource officer, he was a member of the SWAT team. So this is a police officer cut from a different cloth. When you hear gunfire, you go. And that's exactly what he did. And in contrast to to what we saw in Parkland, Florida. You know, there's quite a big contrast in the way that the police officers operated, in the way that the police officers responded. As you can see here, Deputy Blaine Gaskill, he heard gunfire, and this was all over within 60 seconds. This was a quick response. No hesitance. You hear gunfire in a school, there are students in danger. You move with a sense of purpose. There is exigency. You don't ask any questions. You don't say, hey, Sarge, can I go in? You go in and you do your job, your sworn duty. And I just want to give praise and honor to Deputy Blaine Gaskill, because that shooting could have been a lot worse. And obviously, as bad as it is that two students, an entire school, had to go through something like this is horrible. But it also, you know, gives merit to the argument that schools need an armed presence. You don't see the Federal Reserve being considered a no-gun zone, obviously for the public. But the Federal Reserve it's protected and it's guarded with armed men from top to bottom. That's the nation's money. You don't play with that. And that should set a precedent for how schools and the nation's children and youth are protected. And therefore there should be, there are more than enough officers in the United States of America that every school should have an armed presence. And I don't mean one police officer. I mean multiple police officers. Because no longer we can't have soft targets anymore. These gunmen, these deranged people need to know that when they go to certain locations considered soft targets, that their life is in imminent danger. So an interesting point before I move on to the next story, the whole thing about gun control, the nation is really focused on the AR-15. Now this 17-year-old gunman, he had a gun that he couldn't get until he was 21 years old. So he's a cheater. Therefore, he's disqualified. It doesn't work like that. If you're a criminal, it doesn't matter if there's an age restriction, doesn't matter if there's an ownership restriction. Criminals break laws, folks. I don't know how many times I have to say this. People say, oh, well, that's a bad example. You know what? At the end of the day, criminals break laws. I don't care if you think it's a bad example or what. Criminals will continue to break laws. And that's why when we're looking at gun legislation and the Second Amendment, you have to tread very carefully not to infringe upon the rights of law-abiding people. And this is a great example that a good guy with a gun historically are the ones that stop bad guys with guns. Therefore, I think that whatever is done needs to have the safety of law-abiding people, give them the ability to defend themselves, to protect themselves. And I'm not exactly for teachers being armed. I don't think that it needs to go that far. Obviously, if it's like a ex-police officer or someone who has that experience with a firearm, who is proficient with a firearm, fine. But you know what? I'm not quite on board with the arming teachers. Just not yet for me. I feel that there are many things that can be done in terms of, bolstering security. There's the Grassley TED. You know what? I'm actually going to pull this up here. I was reading it yesterday. Here it is. The summary of Grassley Cruz gun substitute. So basically what this outlines is, increase resources for school safety. So Secure Our School grant provides $30 million per year for 10 years under Title III funds. It also targets, felons with gun-related crimes. It targets mental illness, increases executive branch accountability. Definitely check this out. It's just a summary that I have here of the Grassley Cruz gun substitute. But it's, the spirit behind it is one that utilizes the institutions that we have right now. Make sure that there's a streamlined process in, information, because I feel that the information flow right now is archaic in terms of criminals or people with criminal history, mental health history, obtaining guns, only because the information wasn't able to get to these vendors fast enough or get to the right database fast enough, allowing for these criminals to purchase guns. I feel that there needs to be a streamlined process where if you know, like in the case of the Parkland shooting, there were 39 complaints about this guy bringing weapons to school, you know, other domestic issues. And these are huge red flags that need to be realized. They need to be acknowledged. Therefore, this guy should not have been able to purchase firearm. So instead of saying no firearms for anybody, nobody, instead of saying that, say, let's do what we can to ensure that people who should not have guns don't have guns. And we are more than capable of doing that. Onto the Austin male bomber. This is just a really sad and tragic and horrifying story, really. And it reminds me of the Unabomber. I was watching a documentary on Netflix, and it was just crazy to see the similarities here. You know, just imagine going, you know, to your front doorstep and you're waiting for a package, whether it be from Amazon or some other place you bought something, maybe even a gift from family or just a package that you're expecting. And you open it up, and before you could even realize the jeopardy and the danger that you're in, your life is taken or you're maimed terribly. And that was the case for several people in Austin. There was actually 2 killed and 5 injured. There was a total of, I believe, 6 bombs in March, actually, starting March 2nd. Bombs that were delivered in the form of packages and boxes, and they're opened, and people were terribly injured, and in 2 cases, killed. So the FBI and the ATF, there was an investigation in tracking this guy, or to track this guy, and they were able to utilize receipts, CCTV, and other investigative tools to locate this individual as SWAT officers were approaching his vehicle. And this was the side of Interstate 35 in Round Rock, just north of Austin. As they were approaching his vehicle, a SWAT officer actually was approaching his vehicle. He detonated a bomb in his vehicle and blew himself up. The officer was injured by the blast, but he committed suicide. And just goes to show the evil in people's hearts. And it just goes to show that you don't need a gun to, cause chaos. You don't need a gun to be evil or to be wicked. This is evidence, folks, that there is evil in people's hearts. There's some people who are just destined. They just want to see the world burn. You know what I'm saying? Like, no matter what you put into place, what laws or legislation you put into place, there are people who are destined and they don't care about their life. Clearly, this guy doesn't care about his life. They're destined to cause havoc. So I just put on a map here of the different locations of the bombings. There's several locations all over Texas, starting March 2nd and concluding March 21st, where the suspect was killed in an explosion. Finally, folks, Andrew McCabe fired. Andrew McCabe fired. And the media and a lot of people on the left will have you say, oh, see, this is the president. He's, trying to cover his tracks. We're getting so close, and he's firing these people because he knows that they're closing in on him. Come on. Let's be serious here for a second. Chris Wray, FBI director, states that politics did not affect the firing of McCabe. As a matter of fact, there is an independent group within the FBI called the Office of Professional Responsibility. I'll read something here from Wikipedia. The OPR receives, and that's the Office of Professional Responsibility, receives reports of allegations of misconduct made against DOJ attorneys from many sources. Nearly half of all such allegations are reported to the OPR by DOJ sources, such as the attorney involved. The remaining complaints come from a variety of sources, including private attorneys, defendants, and civil litigants, other federal agencies, state or local government officials, judicial and congressional referrals, and media reports. OPR gives expedited attention to judicial findings of misconduct. The OPR reviews each allegation and determines whether further investigation is warranted. The determination is a matter of investigative judgment that weighs many factors, including the nature of the allegation, its apparent credibility, its specificity, its susceptibility to verification, and the source of the allegation. A decision to open a matter does not give rise to a presumption of misconduct, nor shift the burden of proof to the accused person. The OPR's investigations involve a wide range of allegations, and the investigative methods used vary accordingly. So that was a long blurb there, but I just read that to show you that this Office of Professional Responsibility is an independent branch within the FBI, and it was recommended that McCabe be fired. So I think it's very important that we get that clear. This is based on an objective standard, and like the director of the FBI said, Chris Wray, he said politics did not affect McCabe getting fired. And the first clip that I showed today, I'm just going to read a quote from it. Trey Gowdy, one of my favorites, said, "Make no mistake, the FBI is who recommended that McCabe be fired. It wasn't Crazy House Republicans, and it wasn't the Trump administration. It was his own fellow bureau agents." And I think that distinction should be made very clear. And it's being very glossed over right now. And that's not being, established that the OPR is who recommended these charges. A lot of people will say, "Oh no, we're getting so close to Trump, so he's getting scared and he fired McCabe for no reason." That's simply not true. With that, folks, I think I've taken enough of your time. Thank you for tuning in to the 46th episode. Make it your goal to be objective. Have a good night.